It's time for a brand new episode of the Bakery Bears video show.
This is our lifestyle show featuring craft, baking, and a little bit of history.
We've got lots of projects to show and one of our special series to share.
What will we feature this time, and which of our projects will be our favourite?
Let's get on with the show and find out.
Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of the Bakery Bears video show.
Yes, indeed.
And we're featuring, it's a pattern launch, and it's rather exciting. Yes. Because earlier on, I think it was late last year actually, Kay came up with a hat design that very quickly became your absolute favourite. And you decided that you had to release it as a pattern, didn't you?
I did. I initially used the idea as one of the designs for our advent calendar last year, if you remember.
Yeah.
And that was a fingering weight version, and it had some embellishments to it that are sort of festive looking. But I wanted to do a thicker weight version. Effectively, it's like a DK weight version because it's fingering held double. So that's what this is.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's become such a favourite. It's actually going to appear in 2 of our segments today.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness. You're going to see lots of this hat along the way. It's super exciting. It's one of those sort of go-to patterns.
It very much is.
That you just love knitting, and they fly off the needles, don't they?
I'm on my 5th one.
Yeah.
So that tells it all, really.
And it's the perfect project for the season too, because can you feel it? Autumn is on the horizon.
We're in late summer, everyone.
It's like Christmas Eve. The excitement is building.
I know.
Crispy leaves.
I was on my walk, wasn't I?
Rosy apples.
And it was still sunny, and actually it was on a really warm day. We had a little blip of heat and it got up to like 27 on that particular day, but there was something about the air and the light and the leaves just turning a little bit. And I text you saying, oh my gosh, I think late summer has become one of my favourite times of year and then you said to me, oh, it's like that Christmas Eve feeling.
Yeah.
And it really is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Yeah, I mean, it is just like the perfect time of year. But what a summer we've had.
Indeed.
I mean, like, it's been hot, it's been sticky.
Yeah, it has.
And it's been the summer of daughters.
Daughters?
Yes, our daughter has been home from university.
Yes.
And she's been obsessed, it seems, with the cinema. She's been about 4,000 times.
Yeah.
She's seen The Materialists.
Yeah.
And which to us just sounded like the...
She said it was sort of rubbish. Yeah.
Well, the concept, I think we'd seen before on a Hallmark.
Yeah.
With Ryan Beavey.
Yeah.
And that would have been much better, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But also, she's been to see the Fantastic Four twice.
3 times.
Thrice.
She's been 3 times to see the Fantastic Four because she loves 2 of the actors in it.
And I think this sort of obsession with the filming, it sort of led to one of those standoffs that I would guess has been happening between generations for eons. Because, of course, the new Superman film came out, whatever that may be called. And Bryony said to us...
I think it's just called Superman.
And our daughter's called Bryony, of course. And Bryony said to us, supposedly the new Superman, he's just like Christopher Reeve, so will you be going to see it then? And we're like, no. And she's like, bewilderment, wasn't it?
She was.
Shocked bewilderment.
She said, but he's meant to be really like Christopher Reeve, so why wouldn't you?
But he isn't Christopher Reeve.
But he isn't Christopher Reeve.
She couldn't get it until... the reason why I'm telling you this is if you've ever been in this position, I have the solution for you. What you need to do is you take the person that you're talking to. You need to know them well enough to know a film that they love. And in our daughter Bryony's case, it is Jurassic Park. And I said, imagine if they remade Jurassic Park and they cast someone else in the Ian Malcolm role other than Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It was like World War III.
They couldn't do that. How could you do that? So
I said, well, that's how we feel about all of these iterations of Superman. I'm not interested in any of them. because we already had the perfect Superman.
I did, yeah.
You know, why?
I think we spoke about it on the show. We watched a documentary, didn't we? All about Christopher Reeve.
Yeah,
And
we did.
It was like...
Heartbreaking.
So do look out for it. I think it's only available. I mean, maybe it's streamable somewhere. Can't remember exactly what it's called.
Yeah.
We'll stick it. I'll stick a link to it in the show notes below. But I mean, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, he was the perfect Superman. I mean, come on. You know, there's so many people of Bryony's age. You know, Bryony's just coming up 20, who have never seen the original Superman film, and all they're seeing is all of these versions that are
What's
out
worse?
now.
What's worse
they're
is-
missing out.
What's worse is when you say, have you seen the original Superman? They think you're talking about Henry Cavill.
They do, and we're like, no. I don't want any of that.
I mean, look, I've got a lot of time for
Nothing
Henry.
against these actors. Yeah, Henry Cavill's lovely, isn't he?
Yeah,
you
he is
know?
lovely. But what he doesn't have is, I don't think he has any charisma
He's
at all.
not got... No. I mean, I haven't seen it because I don't...
You've seen Henry Cavill, though.
I've seen it. I know who Henry Cavill is. We watched him in the Tudors. He was marvellous in the Tudors.
We did see the Henry Cavill Superman.
Did we?
We did. And that's what we thought of it.
Right. See, I've blocked it from my memory, clearly. It's like watching the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice. I've blocked it.
No, we haven't seen the new Superman, and we won't be.
No.
We actually feel the same way, and it seems that the public feels the same way about the last James Bond film as well.
Oh, yeah, we've not seen that. Not watching it, not interested.
Because I've noticed that it's like, on if you want to like go buy it, it's cheap everywhere.
Yeah. She also went to see the F1 movie.
Yeah, which I think looks all right.
With Brad Pitt.
I think it looks all right.
She said that was good, yeah.
I think we'd enjoy that film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've not seen Days of Thunder, have you?
No,
I think you'd enjoy it.
I'm sure.
Because
I've just never watched it because I'm not really into car racing.
Well, neither-
So, no.
When was the last time you watched me watch a car race?
Yeah.
Oh, look, they went round fast again.
Yeah, I know. I just think it's so boring. Round and round and round. Oh my gosh!
But
right, okay.
That's
round
not
again.
really. That's not really what the film's about. I mean,
No, I'm sure not.
F1. F1. Can you imagine if you went to an F1?
Yeah, I don't get that either, but I understand a lot of people love it. You know.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Bryony's boyfriend loves F1
Because of the engineering and
when
the
did
skill.
we start calling it F1?
I don't know.
It was always Formula One, wasn't it? When did we start shortening it? I don't know.
Well, we shorten everything now, don't we?
It was the Grand Prix.
Apart
all
from
was
people,
called.
it
Are
seems.
you watching the Grand Prix? That's what we used to say.
But look, summer may be nearly over.
Yes.
But autumn is on the way. Much excitement. And speaking of excitement, what a show we have in store. Because coming up later on in the show, we have our pick of the projects.
We do.
It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah.
Because I'm very, very much enjoying my pick of the
Yours
projects.
is amazing.
It is. I think I've only said this once before. The pickety pick of the projects.
Oh,
yes.
it's very amazing, Dan's, yes.
We have some amazing what's off your needles. There's actually some sewn items
Sewing, a bit of sewing.
as well as knitting.
Yes, off my sewing machine needle.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So we're heading back to Holy Island, and it is one of my favourite episodes. Midway through the series, time to get into the Priory and properly explore it. But before we do that, we need to sort of find out how the Priory was built, how it came about. And along the way, we're going to look at something, a real thing, and it's big, from the 8th century.
Oh, wow.
I mean, like, oh
I
my
know.
goodness, yes.
I loved it.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, because you were there.
I was.
That's the thing, you see.
I was there.
Yes. Normally with these things, you haven't been there.
No idea
but
what
you
he's
were
talking
there
about.
for the whole thing.
I was.
So yes, what a show we have in store. And speaking of segments, I've covered them all, apart from one, and that's probably the most exciting of all. And I think we should launch into that segment.
Yes.
As I say, Kay Jones, what's on your needles?
Yay. Okay. So the first thing on my needles is a folded hat. There's no shock there, is there?
There you go. So this is the pattern.
This is the pattern that's now available for purchase.
Oh, so tell everyone about it.
So I will tell everyone about it, but first I'll say what bag it's in. I've been using these bags a lot. I've shown you these before. So this is the Austin bag, and we created this bag last year in Summer of Stitching. The Summer of Stitching 2024. We all stitched along and made this bag. I love it, and I've got two of these because I made a prototype and then I made the one that we all followed along with on the tutorials, and I use these all the time. It was such a lovely, lovely project. And I made it, the sort of base fabric here is a linen, I think it's a linen cotton blend. Do you know is it Robert Kaufman Essex linen? I think it was whoops, nearly dropped it. I think it was those ones, and then these are just little patchworked quilting cotton. So,
And whilst you said it's Summer of Stitching 2024, it's probably very important to say that you can go and watch our Summer of Stitching 2024 content right now.
yeah, absolutely.
So, like any time when we talk about any of these things, it's always linked in the show notes below. So the full, because you also made the Austin mitts.
Yes, we did.
It was and the slow stitching based on the.
And the slow stitching was the panel with the.
And that was based on something, a Jane Austen quilt.
Jane Austen quilt that she made that's in the museum. Yeah, there's a quilt that Jane Austen made, and the sort of triangle, the diamond formation of this was inspired by that quilt. Yeah.
And an interesting start to the show, because we've spoken about the only two people who might actually threaten our marriage, and that is Christopher Reeve and Jane Austen.
Jane Austen would threaten our marriage?
Yeah, because I love her.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as I love Christopher Reeve.
Probably.
I don't know.
Probably.
I do deeply love Christopher Reeve, so yeah. Ooh. Anyway. I've got...
Bit of a Jane McDonald moment there, Kate.
Bit of a Jane McDonald moment. We've been introducing Bryony to the joys of cruising with Jane McDonald. We've been watching it over lunchtime. Yeah, she's not into it, but it's quite funny. Okay, so a folded hat. This is my latest folded hat that is on my needles. The pattern is out now, and it's called Folded Hat because it's got this folded brim. For me, it's just the perfect hat. It's a simple hat, but, I've always wanted to create this hat that would just be really easy to knit. So it's all stocking stitch, there's no rib, you just knit, you create the folded brim, which is really fun. There's a video tutorial in the pattern which shows you how I do it, and I use a little method that for me is just foolproof, and certainly all my testers, I didn't have any feedback that anything was problematic with creating the folded brim, so that was great. And then you just knit some more, and then you do the decreases, and you've got a beautiful hat, which is good for men, it's good for women, it's good for children, everybody. And yeah, this is my latest one in this gorgeous pink yarn. So here's the fold that you can see running along. And actually, it's so funny. Do you know how, I think it was on the last show, I said, I turned it inside out and to show you the brim on the inside. And I said, gosh, it looks lovely on the inside. You could actually wear it reversed. I'll show you. One of my testers said exactly the same thing, and she sent me a picture, and she turned it inside out and worn it, and it looked brilliant because you get this combination of stocking stitch here for the brim and then reverse stocking stitch for the body, and it just looks great. So all you've got to do is just make sure you're careful when you're weaving your ends that they don't show, and you can have a reversible hat. So I did make a note of that in the pattern as well, that you could do that. I think that's really fun. But this yarn I'm using is absolutely lovely. As you can see, it's this gorgeous pink, and it's from Kelly at Lay Family Yarn. She sent me this skein of yarn for me to try this base, because her 75-25, or there because it's her and Nick, their 75-25 base is different to the standard sort of typical 75-25 that most dyers use. She wondered whether I would find this one softer, because you know how I was going on, wasn't I, about 75-25 and me being a bit upset about it and thinking that it just wasn't as soft as it used to be and blah blah blah. So I'm trying this out, and it's absolutely lovely. It's definitely softer. So I'll tell you first of all what the colourway is. So it's a sock set I've got actually, and this colourway is one of their Dahlia Society colourways, and it says smoky on it, and I wasn't quite sure what that reference is, but I think there's a group of dahlias that are called the Smoky group, and this must be inspired by one of the pink ones. I'm not a dahlia expert. I do love dahlias, but I'm not an expert on the colours. And here's the yarn in the little cakes. It's the most gorgeous pink. Yeah, instead of being a 4-ply, this is a 3-plied yarn. And I've never seen that. Has anyone else seen that for a 75-25? 2-ply, you get 2-ply yarn, don't you, quite commonly, and I've used that quite a lot. That's usually an 80-20 blend though, isn't it, when it's 2-ply? And it's slightly thicker as well, I think. But this one, you get the same yardage, it's 425 metres, but there's 3 plies instead of 4. So it has a slightly different look to the yarn, if you can see. It's got that slight rope kind of appearance. not as rope-like as a 2-ply, but not quite as smooth and round as a 4-ply. But, you know, I'm knitting the hat with it, and I'm happy to report at the moment it's really lovely. It's very soft. It's definitely, for me personally, I think it's softer than the standard 75-25. It's got more bounce, and the stitch definition is absolutely lovely. If I hold this close, let me just tuck my tail in there. Can you see the stitch definition? It's really lovely. So what I'm going to do, there was a mini with this. This is the mini that came with it. Gorgeous speckly mini. And I have actually cast on a sock. I've knit a cuff with this speckled because I just was dying to know what it was like, you know, held singly for socks. So I've cast on a cuff, and when I finish this hat, I'm going to use the leftovers, because I'll have just enough leftovers with the mini to make a little shorty pair of socks. So you'll see those next time. I'm really excited to try it. But so far, I think it's a really lovely base, and it feels so nice doubled, you know, it makes it extra squishy. And I think the colour is just gorgeous, isn't it? Oh, I was knitting this for a gift for somebody who loves pink. And it might still be a gift because I just got so many hats. But you never know, I might have to keep it, but we'll see. So yeah, that's my latest folded hat on the needles. And like I say, you can now purchase this from Ravelry and Lovecrafts.
And I think it's probably important to say that the reason why you call it the folded hat is you've learned that when people search, the more straightforward the name is, the more likely it is it's going to get found.
Yes, you know, and
because people tend to search for, I want to knit a pair of socks.
Yeah.
Folded hat.
You might not necessarily search folded hat, but it hopefully, I mean, Ravelry is a thing, isn't it? You know, your pattern will only appear in the top whatevers if, for example, people have hearted it a lot, people have knit it a lot, those kinds of things. So you wouldn't necessarily see this in the top pages for a hat. I have learnt that keeping titles simple, because I know a lot of, and I have tried this in the past, and I do have certain names that are more random, and I know a lot of designers like to use sort of random names because then it won't be duplicated. I don't know, I don't mind so much about the risk of it being duplicated. I would rather it be, you know what you're getting with it, you know. For example, the fairground socks, they were inspired by roller coasters in a fairground. You know, that kind of a thing where it's a bit more descriptive. So yeah, that's why I gave this the name folded hat, because that's what it is, you know. And it's that kind of, I'm knitting my 4th folded hat, I'm knitting my 10th folded hat. Do you know what I mean? Rather than like some word that you might not remember very easily.
The other thing is as well, I think most people reach for, most non-knitters. Yeah. And I think I've over the years spent a lot of time knitting for non-knitters.
Yes.
Non-knitters will tend to reach for less garish items, I think. It'll be more straightforward. Yeah, that'll go with...
Yeah, that'll go with lots of things that are easy to wear, that are...
So it's great gift knitting.
Great gift knitting, you know, and that's what I'm making several for now for Christmas gifts.
And that was your sort of thought process, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, that it would just be one of those patterns that you can just knit again and again. There's 3 sizes in the pattern. There's a small, which is like a sort of older child, small adult. There's then a medium, which is the size I wear, which is, my head's like 22 inches, and then there's a large. The large, actually, yeah, I'll show you in what's off my needles, because I have knit the large, as I test knitted the large myself, and it fits Bryony, because Bryony's got a bigger head. It fits her absolutely perfectly. It fits Dan as well. His is even bigger. It fits Dan as well, but I would need to knit it a little bit longer for you, which, you know, is fine. So I think I'm hoping I've covered, you know, most sizes, apart from tiny, you know, babies and children. And I'm not sure you would really knit really woolly hats. But anyway, I'm overthinking it. Yeah, there's 3 sizes and it should cover really all the bases. But this one I'm absolutely loving, and I'm so desperate to carry on, you know, to knit those socks. You know, like I say, I've knit the cuff already, and so far it's lovely. So I'm going to race through this one so that I can carry on with the socks that I'll be knitting with the leftovers.
Cool.
Beautiful. So Dan Jones, what's on your needles?
It's so exciting. It's the Sweetheart cowl, and knitting it for our daughter Bryony, and I'm very excited because it's going to be finished in time for autumn, which is just wonderful because that's perfect.
That is
that is perfect cowl wearing weather, isn't it? Would you say that's your sort of optimal cowl? No, all year is for you.
Well, I wear cowls for a huge section of the year. I don't really wear scarves. I find scarves a bit faffy, but cowls, I wear them, from probably, depending on the weather, but potentially from sort of the end of September through to May,
The wonderful thing about this project is it's like got such great drape. It's just lovely. It feels really it'll be just gorgeous to wear, I think, and it's super soft.
Yeah.
And as well, I think that the pinky salmony sort of colour really it pops just brilliantly. But then it also makes the grey colour look just gorgeous. It's so tonal. It's a really nice yarn.
It's very tonal, that grey, isn't it?
Yeah. So on the last bit of colourwork, literally the last few rounds of colourwork, then a bit of ribbing, and then it's done. And it's been a really wonderful project. I've thoroughly enjoyed knitting all of it. It's been just brilliant. So you dyed the pinky yarn. The other one was
Eden Cottage is the grey.
Yes.
It's a sparkle base.
Yeah.
It's on the Rosedale 4-ply. Oh, it's Pete. It's called Pete.
Right.
And it's Gold Stellina Sparkle.
Yeah.
So, it's the colour of peat. Although peat, to me, is more brown, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that brings back memories.
Yeah, we shouldn't be doing that with the peat, everyone. No. Don't start me on that.
I remember growing up, peat logs being available to buy from the petrol station to burn on your fire.
I know, people still do, I think. I mean, my mum and dad they moved to Ireland some years ago, came back, long story. Anyway, when they lived there, when I used to go and visit, there was a big pile of peat logs outside their house that they used on their fire. I know. And I'm sure it is still done, yeah. Don't do it, people. We're killing the planet. Yeah.
But instead, let's make peat colourways and knit gorgeous cowls. That's the answer. So, yes, coming to the end, and now, I definitely am going to want to knit another colourwork cowl, I think. Yeah. So I shall look forward to casting a new one on soon.
And you use more of the grey, than the contrast, if you like, but there's plenty left to finish it. And then I get the leftovers. Yay! My favourite.
So, yes, the end of another of my gorgeous cowls. Yep. Let's find out what else Kay's been knitting.
Right, so I'm continuing on with a pair of socks. I've shown you these before, but I'm now on the second sock. This is a pair of socks that I'm knitting with one of the colourways that I dyed up for my perfect socks. This was the Shop Around the Corner colourway, and this pattern is my Jemima socks pattern, which was one of the patterns in my first Beatrix Potter collection. So in the Beatrix Potter collection, there's 2 of them. The first one had 3 patterns, the second one had 3 patterns, and within that first collection was the Jemima socks pattern, and this sock is that pattern. I should just say, actually, you can buy that collection as a little ebook with the 3 patterns in, or you can buy them individually now. So Jemima socks is what it would be on Ravelry. And here's the first sock, all finished. And I think it looks really great. This yarn colourway is just lovely, isn't it? So we've got one sock finished. So this pattern is a textured pattern, and it's inspired by the trellis fence that goes around Mr. McGregor's garden that Jemima used to sneak into and steal vegetables from. So we've got this lovely textured pattern. It's a garter-edged heel flap, and there's a tutorial in the video showing you how to pick up from that. Square heel turn, and then down to an umbrella toe. So one sock all finished. And the second sock is on the needles. I've just started the heel flap last night. I think I've just done 2 rows of the heel flap. So that's the second one on the needles. So I've just done short socks because these will be for me to add to my sock stash. So yeah, I've finished the leg and I'm just on the heel flap. I'm doing this magic loop, as you can see, and I use 2.5mm. I generally use 2.5mm these days for knitting socks because I find that I seem to get the gauge. I get about 8.5 stitches to the inch using 2.5mm. Sometimes even a bit more depending on what the yarn base is. So I think that, you know, that's the sort of typical gauge that someone might get using 2.25, for example. And I used to always use 2.25, but I don't think my gauge is tight, but it's certainly not loose. And I think it would err more towards slightly tight than loose. So that's why I find 2.5mm to be the perfect size for socks for me, because we all like, as a family, we all like socks that have a bit of stretch rather than being like iron. You know, I don't really like a gauge that's really, really firm for socks. But yeah, I'm on the second sock now, and I'm just using these as my bedtime knitting. So hopefully these will be done for next time, because they are coming along quickly and it's only a short leg, so that's quick. I've done, how many did I do? 6, 12, I think it's 24 rounds for this leg, which is about what I would normally do for a short sock. I mean, how short do you do your short socks? If you like short socks, how short is your leg? So I've got 12 rounds for the cuff, and then generally round about 24 rounds, something like that, for the leg. You know, is that super short? I think there's definitely shorter, isn't there? I see a lot of short socks where it's just rib and then you go into the heel flap. I mean, that's really short, isn't it? That's more like a trainer sock. But I find that they can slip down if they're too short. This is just the perfect length for me. And the yarn's so pretty. I love how it worked up on the stocking stitch side, just with those tiny specks of colour. Really lovely. What is this base? 8515 is the one that I always use for dyeing on these days, pretty much always use. And although there's not as much nylon, there's only 15% nylon, so they don't wear as well. You know, I know that from experience. They don't wear as well as the ones that have got 25% nylon. Because I knit so many socks, it doesn't really matter to me that they don't wear as well, because I'm always knitting socks and I can always replace them when they wear out. And I just find this base is a bit thicker, a bit plumper, and it's soft and bouncy and lovely.
So you forego a bit of wear?
Yes.
For the quality,
for the comfort.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, but I do have several pairs that I knit for sock stash for me last year. I've got a pair on today actually that are 75-25, and I have been wearing them all year, and they have worn really well. Whereas a pair that I made again last year for sock stash, which is in this base and not wearing as well, you know, and they are going a little bit thin on the heel. So it definitely, for me, doesn't wear as well. It's not going to, is it, if it's got less nylon? 15% as opposed to 25% is quite a big amount.
You know that one that you started knitting the cuff on, that was the mini from Kelly?
It's 25%, the one from Kelly, right. So and I'm interested.
Would you say, comfort-wise, it's got the potential to be the same?
Well, I think so. I mean, this one, the 85-15, I think is still softer than that 75-25 from Kelly, but that's just because there's more merino.
Yeah.
You know, so it's going to be. I think, to me, it sort of feels like it could be the same quality of merino in the one from Kelly, but there's more nylon, and there's like 1 ply less. So I think it's definitely comparable, and I'm really interested to see how a pair of socks in that wear, because if it's comfortable and they wear well, then I'll be definitely buying more. Yeah.
So you probably just answered the question that I was going to ask, and that is, right now, with the feel of that, the experience you've had knitting that hat, do you think that you might look to actually use that base?
Well, I don't know where I need to have words with Kelly. I don't know where she gets that base from. Right. You know, it's not a base that I can see from the supplier that I use. But you know, as a full-time yarn dyer, it's likely that it's from somewhere that she's got trade account with. So, I'll have to see if she can give me some inside info. But yeah, at the moment, I'm waiting to knit a pair of socks with that base from Kelly, and I'll try them and wear them and see how they fare and wash and all of that.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Thinking
it's
about
really interesting,
the types of yarn because as well, there's an element of what do you enjoy working with?
Well, that for me is, I was talking to Dan about this recently because my sock mojo had kind of declined a little bit, and when I got that yarn from Kelly and I started knitting with it, I'm like, oh gosh, I really want to knit a pair of socks with this because it feels really nice. So I realised, and I've realised this before, but really half of the enjoyment for knitting for me is the yarn I'm knitting with. And I'm not really someone who can just use any yarn and just be happy because I'm knitting. I've got to be enjoying the yarn. And that could be an acrylic yarn, there's lots of good ones out there. Or it could be a merino.
So let's say it's an acrylic yarn. If it was like super pooly, the colourway, would you not be enjoying working with that?
No.
But if it was like a lovely colour, if it looked gorgeous,
I wouldn't necessarily.
But if it was super stringy and it didn't have a lot of give, would you enjoy working with that?
No, and I've abandoned things before.
It's both things that you're looking for. You're looking for a colourway which would you say is the most important, the colourway or the feel, or is it both equally as important?
That's a tricky one, isn't it? Because everybody knows what I feel about pooling. But then I did knit you those socks, which pulled like the devil, but I really loved the yarn.
Right.
So.
But in that, was it that you knew that I would love wearing them?
Yes.
So if you didn't know that I would love wearing them, do you think you would have stopped?
If they were for me, I wouldn't have knit them.
Right.
Yeah, because I would not want to. But they would look different. If I was knitting them for me, they might not have pulled because the stitch count would have been way lower.
But you loving the yarn actually wouldn't have kept you knitting the socks.
Not if it was pooling like that, no.
So I think what we're getting down to is, it's important that it feels good.
Yeah.
But actually,
I've got to be liking what I'm seeing as well.
And is that what's got your sock motivation back?
Yeah, probably, because that pink is just such a beautiful pink as well. So I think it is a combination of things. I think it's a combination of the colour is lovely, and I'm excited to see what a pair of socks would feel like and what they would be like to wear in that yarn. I'm excited to see how it will wash, how they will wear, through the course of a year, all of those sorts of things. I think it's, when anything's new and you've discovered something new that you didn't think was out there, you're like, oh, I want to, have a go at that and I want to do that. And so I think it's a combination of all those things. But the base of a yarn, I've stopped knitting socks very, very quickly when I've discovered that the base is not very pleasant to knit with. Because at the end of the day, you put a lot of work into these things, don't you? And how something is feeling in my fingers. Even if the yarn was really pretty, if it felt unpleasant, or it was really thin, or it was thin and thick, or any of these sorts of things. I'm
sat here knitting with...
Does this mean I'm incredibly fussy? I'm sat here thinking, gosh, I must be really
not at all, not at all. It's good that you know what you like, but what you were describing then, you said, if it felt really rough, if it went thick or thin, I'm thinking, she's describing Let
Lopey, yeah. Well, I don't knit with Let Lopey, do I? Because, But this is why it's completely a personal choice, isn't it?
Well, it's why life is so cool, because as my grandmas used to say, variety is the spice of life.
Absolutely.
There's a yarn for everyone.
Yeah, it was so boring, wouldn't it, if we all thought
there's a yarn for everyone, there's a pattern for everyone.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
And then, of course, needles. Oh my goodness, the list goes on.
The list does go on.
And that's why it can feel terrifying knowing where to dive in.
Yeah, and I think this is why sometimes it can just be alchemy, can't it? When you've got your favourite needles, you've found a gorgeous yarn, it's soft, it's lovely, it's whatever. It might not be softness that is your thing. Whatever, the colour is beautiful, the project is lovely. Sometimes there is just that moment, isn't there, where you're like, this is just, fabulous.
But it is, it's like anything in life, you know, if you're like coming into something or you don't have as much time as maybe other people do to sort of invest in that particular thing. Sometimes it is like terrifying knowing, oh, what's good, what's bad, what isn't.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we started doing our reviews. And there's loads of them now. I think there's over 100.
Yeah.
There's needles, there's notions, there's yarn, there's absolutely everything. And we just try and help people find their way through what's good and what's not good.
Yeah.
Some of your most popular reviews are the ones where you didn't like it.
Didn't like it.
Which is really
and there's
funny.
been some, you know.
Oh, there has. That's the thing.
You've got to be honest.
You
You've
do.
got to be honest in life, haven't you? You know, I can't be doing with
Otherwise, how do you know?
flim flam.
What you want always is a bit of help, isn't it? Finding your way through and finding, like we said, what's good and what's not. And if you're not honest, then how will you ever know?
Yeah, and you know, even when you're honest, your opinion might not be the same as someone else's, but at least you know that what they're saying you can trust. And I like to think that, you know, when we say something, you can trust what we're saying is what we genuinely think.
Yeah.
I'm sure by now that you know that that's how we operate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, look.
So, yeah, I'm carrying on with my Jemima socks. Hopefully be done next time.
Looking wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's with great excitement that it's time to head back to Holy Island.
Oh.
Can you believe it? 3rd episode. This is it. We're about to hit the halfway point of the series. And it's a spectacular episode. Last time we discovered the arrival of the Vikings. This time we're going to find out about the departure of the Vikings and then the first seeds, the planting of the seed which grew into England. Although the more I've sort of learnt about the Anglo-Saxons and the British, the more I feel British. And the fact that you're half Irish and I'm half Welsh,
True.
that makes me feel even more affinity with the British.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, let's talk more action as we head back to Holy Island for the 3rd part of The Story of Holy Island. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our most adventurous series yet. In case you didn't know, I love history. I sort of grew up with it, really, going to school in York and living in a village on its outskirts. So I suppose when Back to the Future came out, it was pretty obvious that I was going to love it. Because for me, learning about history was like travelling in time. The problem with history in the modern world is quite often you have to travel a bit to get to it. I used to do my head in when I was young. We'd go visit a castle one week, then I'd have to wait until the week after for our next trip out before we might see an abbey or maybe a Neolithic monument. Well, how stupid do you think I felt when I realised that there's a place where it's all within walking distance? From an absolutely spectacular Tudor castle with a history that spans hundreds of years, and it's got an interior that you won't believe it until you've seen it. To a priory with a heritage that goes back to the very foundation of Christianity in the British Isles. And what about the Paleozoic era? That's 60 million years ago to you and me. On this beach, we will find evidence of even that.
this series, we're going to explore the history of an island that encapsulates the whole of the British Isles, but in a space that's 3 miles long and 2 miles wide. This is going to be absolutely spectacular. Welcome to my story of Holy Island. Welcome back everyone to Lindisfarne and my story of Holy Island. Before we get started today, let's take a look back at some of the highlights of what we discovered last time in our really epic episode where we discovered the dawn of the Vikings. We visited Lindisfarne Harbour Beach, the site of the most influential Viking raid in British history. We took a walk along the east coast of the island and we discovered that the Vikings weren't actually called Vikings. They didn't wear horned helmets and they looked unbelievably like the men and women that they were now raiding across England, Ireland and Scotland. Finally, we told the story of the raid on Lindisfarne, and we found out it was just the start of the Vikings' impact on Britain. In this episode of the series, we're finally going to get inside this gorgeous building for a proper explore. If you've been wondering what all these wonderful spaces used to be, we'll find out later on in the episode. But when I left you last time, the year was 850 and the Vikings had just realised that they could take so much more from Britain than just gold and silver. This was the moment when the Vikings decided that they were going to stay and perhaps conquer the whole of the country. So what impact did that Viking arrival have on Britain as a whole? And what impact did it have on the monastery here at Lindisfarne? The first clue to finding out the answer to that question can be found in the entrance to this wonderful place. The first raid on Lindisfarne in 793 changed life here forever. Anglo-Saxon monasteries were poorly defended, and by the time that the Anglo-Saxons realised that there was a problem, it was all too late. But the monks of Lindisfarne were a wily bunch, and some of the richest treasures were saved, the Lindisfarne Gospels to name but one. The only thing it lost was its jewelled cover. You can but wonder how that happened. My guess is the monks realised the Vikings would see the value in the jewels and not the text of the book. So as a raid began, they took it off and left it for them, taking with them, of course, the real treasure, which was the words written within. For the next 77 years, the monastery would regularly come under attack, and the casualties would have been many and really quite gruesome. Now, there's an absolute treasure that is still here on the island, and it's a gravestone dating from exactly this period, and it gives us perhaps an idea of what one of those raids must have felt like. We're looking at the top of an Anglo-Saxon grave marker. This was found buried in the monastery grounds on one of the archaeological digs that's taken place over the last 100 years. The carvings on the stone depict a Viking attack. We know the men on this stone are Vikings thanks to the design of their swords and their battle axes. It's a terrifying depiction of a raid as the weapons are poised ready to slice, cut and thrust. This is a beautiful piece of Anglo-Saxon art, bequeathed to us by a highly skilled mason. It's a superb example of the community here coming to terms with the end of an era.
That's because in 875, 241 years after the monastery was formed here on Lindisfarne, the 14th bishop realised that they could hold out no longer. So they left, taking all their valuables with them, including St Cuthbert. They set out south and they lived in secret on the mainland for the next 150 years. And that was the end of the monastery on Lindisfarne.
We're walking in the footsteps of that community as we follow the path off the island. They must have done so with a heavy heart. Lindisfarne would not have been uninhabited for long though. It was richly resourced in farming and fishing and beloved by the Northumbrians. But for a little more than 200 years we know little of what went on here. The same cannot be said though of the mainland, where the monks were now heading. In the years leading up to their departure from Lindisfarne, the Viking conquest of Britain had begun. It started with the formation of a great Viking army that instead of raiding and then leaving, decided to stay, fighting battles as they presented themselves.
The roving army of axe-wielding warriors became known as the Great Heathen Horde, and they descended on East Anglia in 855. This time, though, they adopted different tactics. Instead of getting back on their ships and moving on, they stayed. They stole horses, and they started riding north to Northumbria. In the years following the departure of the Romans, the Anglo-Saxons of Northumbria had made the great city of York their capital. They called it Ephorwick. And thanks to the Roman walls, it became the jewel in the crown of the Northumbrians' kingdom.
It was here in 627, as Northumbria became Christian, that the first minster was constructed. In the years that followed, a great library was built and a school was opened. By 855, the first church had been replaced with a vast cathedral housing 30 altars. This great city should have been well protected, but before any men could be mustered to hold it, the Vikings were inside the walls. Decades of raids at Lindisfarne and the other centres of Northumbrian learning had weakened the once powerful kingdom, and now its greatest city had fallen. It sent shockwaves through Northumbria and the rest of the country. The capture of the city left a deep impression on the Vikings too. Stories were told and retold for centuries afterward in the Old Norse sagas. As the stories grew in extravagance, a character was created to explain the lead-up to the battle, and his name was Ragnar Lothbrok. Within these tales, they claimed that Ragnar had been murdered by the king of Northumbria. In appropriately dramatic fashion, that king had dumped Ragnar in a snake pit on the outskirts of York. None of this was true, but it gave the invaders of Britain a compelling excuse as to why they'd done so. because with this fictional death, his sons had to avenge it. Whilst Ragnar was fictional, his sons were not. Their names were Bjorn Ironside, Halfdan Whiteshirt, Ubba, Sigurd Snake in the Eye, and Ivar the Boneless. Their capture of York would now propel them on to conquer virtually the whole country.
This, though, was an incredibly slow process. It would be 15 years before the Vikings would move on into East Anglia and bring to an end their kingdom and, of course, kill their king Edmund. And they brought to an end a kingdom which had lasted for 450 years, as was shown so amazingly in the archaeological work that was done at Sutton Hoo.
The fall of East Anglia had a profound effect on the advancing Christian kingdoms of Europe. So much so that nearly 100 years later it was chronicled by a monk called Abbo in the Abbey of Fleury in France. He tells us that from the north comes all that's evil. Vikings, Abbo warns us, are a very bad thing, and he goes on to describe the killing of the East Anglian king in specific and gory detail. Whilst this was for hundreds of years believed to be an accurate description of the event, historians now categorically agree it was a piece of propaganda.
Abbo actually had no idea what had happened. He just used the event to paint these non-Christians in the worst possible light. Now, some records do remain of the king who had ruled, the Celtic king who had ruled in this part of the world. He was called Edmund, incidentally. And what records do remain say he was ineffective, and he'd actually done a terrible job, hadn't he, of protecting his people from the Vikings. But Abbo's words caused this king to be sainted, and a church was built on the site where he had supposedly been killed and then buried, and it became a site of pilgrimage up until 1539. It was so popular that a town grew up around it, and it remains to this day, and it's called Bury St Edmunds.
The Vikings now started to put down serious roots across Northumberland, Mercia, East Anglia, Ireland and Scotland. One of the longest lasting legacies of the Vikings that still lives with us today are the place names they awarded areas they'd conquered. Jorvik, or York as it has become known, is probably the most famous. There are many others though. Any name ending in B is Viking. Whitby and Grimsby are great examples. No longer were they defeating by force, they were living here, ploughing the fields and starting families with local girls. This was colonisation, not conquest.
By spring 878, all that was left of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, 7 of them had started. There was now just one, and they were led by King Alfred. He led the remaining, there was hardly any of his court left. There was just maybe 20 or 30 people. He took them to Athelney in Somerset. And the reason why he picked that site was because it was on the Somerset levels and it was, in effect, surrounded by water.
It was a wilderness, but Alfred made it his home. That is, until St Cuthbert of Lindisfarne appeared to him to spur him into action, in a dream, of course. With regret, this story is a myth. The real reason was Alfred got word that a battle in Somerset had led to the death of the killer of King Edmund. It was none other than Ubba, son of the mythical Ragnar Lothbrok. Better still, 20 Viking longships had been destroyed and a whole army had been wiped out.
This was the moment that the tide turned. The Anglo-Saxons knew that they could beat the Vikings. So Alfred sent word to all those loyal to him, because the moment had come to fight, and the site that he chose for the battle was a Neolithic burial ground. It's called Bratton Camp, and it's in the village of Eddington in Wiltshire.
The battle took place on the 12th of May 878. If there is a seed to the story that grew into Great Britain, this was the day it was planted. Little is known of exactly what happened in the battle, but we can surmise it was a resounding victory for Alfred. Why? Because the Anglo-Saxons would give no hostages to the Vikings, but the Vikings would give up whoever Alfred chose. Alfred was clever. He selected 30 of the most important Viking warriors, including their leader Guthrum. He did not ask to take them hostage, but instead to baptize them as Christians, and the Vikings agreed. In an astounding move of goodwill and faith in his chosen men, he actually stood as godfather to Guthrum.
In one victory, King Alfred won the kingdom of England for his family line. And for the next 46 years, they gradually spread further and further across the country, conquering as they went. And it was his grandson, Athelstan, who, 46 years after that victory against the Vikings, that was declared the first real king of England. The Viking story, though, was far from over. They gave us Yuletide. Yuletide was an event that the Vikings celebrated round about the same time as Christmas. And when they became Christian, it was just simply plugged into the Christmas celebrations. Also, the Vikings gave us so many words. Their lords were called jarls. And in time, English lords would become earls, a direct sort of derivative of that word jarl. It was, though, around this time that the history books sprang back into action with regards to Lindisfarne, and it was all thanks to the Benedictines, because they were on their way here and they were going to re-establish not a monastery but a priory, which is the ruin which graces this wonderful island to this day. And in part 2, that's what we're going to be exploring. So thank you so much for watching so far, and I'll see you later on in the show with more of the story of Holy Island.
That is one of my most favourite sort of tangible pieces of history that I've seen anywhere. It's up there with the things that we saw in Rome. We're only talking about that recently, actually. Going through my little library and happened to pick up a book which I'd been reading when we went to Rome 20 years ago, and what dropped out but 2 tickets to the Colosseum with the date on and everything. I mean, just amazing. And also coincides with the year we got married. What a year that was.
It was.
I mean, completely spectacular.
2005,
That gravestone, though, is right up there with all of it. I mean, it's just amazing to see that. And it's like, it's visceral and it's terrifying, but it's entrancing.
It's kind of cute, I think.
Well, you can look at it sort of in a cute way as well, but, you know, if you look at it for what it is, I mean, it's like, oh my goodness, you can't really imagine the sort of scary nature of what the people who were on the island went through with those raids. And my goodness, what a sort of cool end to the story, because, you know, the end of the Vikings signifies the start, really, of the country that we know today, because Alfred, who defeated the Vikings, that starts the line of the kings that we've got right now, which is just nuts,
Amazing.
really. I mean, you know, considering how long ago it is. Part 2, it's time finally to get into that priory, because everything that's gone before, it was the monastery. And whilst it's on the same site, and there's some stones there that we're going to find later on in the series, which do date back to that original site, what we've been walking around, it's the priory that was built afterwards, and we're going to learn all about that in part 2. Right now, though, it's time for me to tell you all about my pick of the projects.
I never know what you're going to do.
2 episodes ago, we introduced you to my next cast-on for colourwork jumper, and it is the Scarfar. And yesterday, when I was trying to think of the name, and I can't think what it was now, but it was making me laugh out loud. Oh, Shergar. That's what I kept saying.
Shergar.
Was that the horse that disappeared?
Yeah.
Whatever happened to Shergar?
Did they ever find Shergar?
I don't think
know.
so.
Yeah. Gosh.
Hopefully he retired somewhere.
I'd like to think that.
But this is the Scarfar. It nearly went again.
Yeah, it did.
I nearly said Shergar.
We're going to be calling it Shergar, aren't we?
I am so unbelievably in love with this project. And the reason is, And you know, credit where credit's due. These colours are the colours that are on the pattern.
They are the exact colours.
And she's a great designer.
She really is, yeah.
Is it Vidis Jonsdottir?
Something like that.
It's something like that. Look, I'm
so
really
sorry,
trying.
Icelandic people. Yeah.
Icelandic people who we feel such an affinity
I
with.
know.
We talk about
I'd
Iceland.
love to go to Iceland.
We would
Really
Google
would.
Google Earthing it, weren't we?
Yeah, we were.
Like walking down streets.
Yeah,
and
we were. Yeah.
It all looks spectacular. And she's just such a brilliant designer. You know,
Shall I hold it up while
I've not
you
knitted
talk?
one of her. They've all been just brilliant. But what makes this one different is it's those bird motifs. They're cormorants, European shags, as we found out 2 episodes ago. Cormorants which are going to come up on the body. But it's the colours which she chose. Because there's two... I mean, here are the pictures from Ravelry. And this first one... You know, he looks very sort of dapper and lovely and very normal. But then look at this one. Oh, my goodness. Talk about popping. You know, he is a Viking if ever I saw one.
Yeah.
And the jumper it jumps off the page
It
for me.
really does, yeah.
So I cannot wait to get this one finished. And I think it's so exciting to feel that way about projects which I've now been knitting a long time. I mean, I love all of these, but this one... just feels like the one I've always been destined to knit. So cast on, weird ribbing, very short.
Very short.
And then into the colourwork, which was really quite sort of properly going for it. And I just wonder, actually, because when you do colourwork like that, it sucks in.
What do you mean?
If because of the floats and things, it tends to not have as much give as the fabric here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wonder if she's done the short rib because she's actually thinking of that as the full band of ribbing.
I don't know. I mean, if I'd known, Dan had started the colourwork before showing me this.
I was trusting the designer.
Yeah, and I said to him, gosh, that's a really short rib. It's literally like 6 rounds or something. Is it? Or 7 rounds? Or
Something like that.
It's really short, you can see. And I said, if I'd have known, I would have told you to knit a few more of the dark rounds.
Let's see what
before
happens.
Going in, because it sort of is doing what I thought it might, and it's kind of, can you see how it's sort of flipping up a little bit? It doesn't want to stay down because it's such a short rib. But
It's going to be interesting to see what happens when
I know
the full
that,
body's on it. And
and I know
blocked.
that these block amazingly well.
Yeah.
So hopefully the blocking will then stabilise that and keep it flat. But I don't know why the rib is so short.
It's like I said, the only reason I can think of is...
But quite often she does this, though, where you've got this on the bottom of the...
There's never been this intensity of colourwork on the bottom of any of the designs I've done so far. This is the most full-on intense.
Yeah.
Before there's been very subtle, simple motifs.
I'm still not convinced, because it's the switching from, you're switching from stocking stitch to rib when you've only done that little rib that for me causes the sort of, it wants to do that. You're following the pattern. So.
I'm following the pattern, and the bottom line is the way I knit my jumpers, I knit them form-fitting.
Yeah,
so
true.
It's going to be form-fitting around. And the other thing is, no one's going to be looking at the bottom of my jumper.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure it'll all be fine. And the blue, I love the blue. Did we? We told everybody the colours before, didn't we? It's the colours from the pattern.
Yes.
So if you're interested and you want to look at what they were, it's the exact colours that are in the pattern. So they'll be listed, won't they?
So it's my pick of the projects for many reasons, but primarily it is the colours.
Yeah,
it's
gorgeous.
the colours that make this different to what we've done before.
Very autumnal, and even though it's blue, I mean, I do think it's very autumnal. Is blue an autumnal colour? I wouldn't have said generally, would you? But this one seems to be. Yeah, it's lovely.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
So that's my pick of the projects.
Lovely.
And I'm now into the body of the jumper. Can you believe it? And I actually enjoy this with the Let Lopi because of the sort of textural nature and the way that the colours work up. So very exciting.
That's the blue, look. It's lovely. It's like an Air Force blue, isn't it? Lovely.
So what is your pick of the projects?
Right. Mine is another pair of socks, everybody. Yay, I've got a bit of that sock mojo back.
These are screaming something.
they are screaming something. Now, this pair of socks, I only started this pair of socks last Friday afternoon, and I finished the first sock yesterday, and I didn't knit it the whole time. I think I knit the first sock in over the course of about 3 days. Not solidly, but, you know, I knit it in about 3 days. And the reason I started this sock is because Bryony and I were going to watch a film. And these socks have that theme. I'll show you the finished sock first. Oh, isn't it lovely? So this yarn is Deep Stash yarn. I don't know when this is from. I'm guessing it might be sort of 3 or 4 years old, this yarn. So is that classed as Deep Stash? It would be for me, but I know people have much older yarn, don't they? But yeah, I've had it a few years. And it's from Stripy Cat Yarns, who she had a break from dyeing yarn, and she's just come back, I think, with an update just recently, the UK dyer. And this particular colourway was inspired by book 1 of the Harry Potter series. So it's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. It was a sock set that was 50 gram self-striping and 20 gram mini. So I'm just doing short socks, so there's plenty, and these will be for me. You know, the self-striping and then the mini. This red actually perfectly matches the red in the, you know, in the self-striping. Sometimes it can be a little bit off, can't it? Because it must be tricky to get the same shade by itself as opposed to dyeing it for the self-striping. That must be a tricky business. But these match absolutely perfectly, and so perfectly that I actually started the heel here. You can see it just went into it after this green bit here. And I started after the heel with the red, and you sort of can't tell where the heel ends and that stripe begins. It's really, really good. So yeah, we sat down to watch one of the films, and it wasn't The Philosopher's Stone. I did want to watch that one, but as usual, we had to go with Bryony's favourite. And I said, look, I don't mind as long as it's one of the first 3, because after that, I kind of lose interest in the films. I don't really like the look of them. I don't really like what the director's done with it. Luckily, her favourite is the third one, Azkaban. So we watched that one while I cast on these socks. And it was so lovely. So I went and I thought, right, I must have a Harry Potter project bag to put these in. And I did, but it's inappropriately large for a pair of socks. But I'm using it anyway. It's this one. These bags actually were made by a friend of mine, Sasha, who lives in the US. A few years ago, we did, I think it was a patron knit-along or something that was Harry Potter themed, and she made us a load of bags and just sent them to us. She doesn't make bags to sell or anything. She used to, but she doesn't anymore. And she just made them and sent them to me to use as prizes, which was incredibly generous. She's a beautiful bag maker. So yeah, sock project in this huge bag, but you know, I'm not bothered. It's lovely. I had the association going on. And I also have got the original paper. It's a paperback copy of what will have been, I'm presuming that it's these book covers that were the inspiration for the colourway. This is the book cover, I think the original illustration that were on like the first run of books as far as I can remember. And I bought this one. I looked at when I bought this one. And the only other books that it says inside here, it's Chamber of Secrets is the only other one it's recommending. So this print run must have been in between Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban. So it must have been somewhere around 98, I think, something like that. So about a year after maybe it was published, or within 2 years of it being published, I bought this and I read it all those years ago. It's amazing, isn't it? So it's quite a yellowed copy. But I wonder actually if it's Dumbledore on the back that has inspired her colours, because if you look at the colours and then look at Dumbledore, they're all in there, the colours are all in there. So I do wonder if it's this illustration of Dumbledore or if it's a combination, you know, of the... But doesn't it look lovely, the book and the sock? I actually don't like any other book covers, any of the other illustrations of Harry Potter. I only like these ones. I'm not sure. Oh, look, cover illustrations by Thomas Taylor, it says. And I've got this one, and I've got the next two that are with this illustration, but then I didn't buy them after that. Bryony then continued to buy them, and by then the covers had changed to the one that I think you see more commonly, and I don't like those illustrations. I like these ones. So I love that this sock is this book, and I think that's really nice. So yeah, I got this cast on while we were watching. I knit the cuff, and then I got into the leg, and then I've continued on and knit them really quick. I've used my fairground pattern, I should have said. So this wavy pattern is brilliant for self-striping, and I've put in my butterfly heel, which is in the pattern, designed for self-striping, and umbrella toe, and a really short leg again because it's for me. So yeah, I haven't cast on the second one. I only finished this one yesterday afternoon, so I need to get the second one on the go. And I think the reason it's the pick of my projects this time is just because it's the whole thing.
I was going to say,
it's the
just
whole
everything.
It's the whole feel of the project.
Well, it's also the perfect season too, because they're starting
Yeah.
term, so it's about this time of year some of the book is set, and it makes me think of
autumn.
yeah.
Harry Potter always makes me think of
colours are
autumn.
too.
It's that back to school feel, isn't it?
It's linking you to the sort of upbringing of our daughter, who's
Yeah.
getting older all the time and
Yeah,
is branching
yeah.
out further and further into the world. So there's like
Yeah.
a million things. I
There's
can
a
see why
million-
that flew off the needles.
Yeah, it absolutely did. The only thing I would say about the stripy cat yarn self-striping is the stripes are really short, really narrow. If you look at the stocking stitch side, they're not quite 3 rounds. If you look here, can you see in the yellow? Part of it is 2 rounds, part is 3. And I think that's fine when you get a bold contrast. This yellow stripe is what's making it, I think. But when you look at these colours here, it is a bit blendy and not quite as, it doesn't stand out as a self-striping. I think if it was just even 4 rounds, I think it would be fine. But the fact that it's not quite 3 rounds, it's a bit narrow for me, and I do sort of wish they were a bit thicker. But I think because of that yellow stripe, I think it's the yellow one that really helps the self-striping look. But overall, I think they're absolutely lovely. And like I say, it's the whole feel of the project for me with this. It's the association of, having an old book, 1998. I suppose it would be classed as old these days. This old book that I've read a couple of times, that Bryony's read a couple of times, is on her bookshelf now with all of her other ones. Lovely sock. The yarn's been in my stash for a while, so it's nice to use something, isn't it, that's been in there and has been staring at you for a few years, and then to see it as a sock. So it's the whole thing, really. Yeah.
Cool.
Love it.
That's so exciting. So how long do you think you were staring at that yarn for? How long do you think it was in stash? I feel like it was
I've had
ages.
it 3 or 4 years.
Right.
I must have, yeah. And I've been moving it around my shelf and just thinking, one day I'll cast that on. And then I'm like, do you know what? Today's the day. And it was great.
Speaking of socks, Kay has just shared in her monthly design diary another pair of rather exciting socks.
Yes.
It's been a very popular episode of her design diary with our Bakery Bear patrons, and we thought, given the fact that we're currently watching another episode of the story of Holy Island, that you might like to see a little snippet of the story behind the island socks.
Welcome everybody to another design diary. Now today I'm talking about the next platinum pattern, and it's the island socks. These have become quite a special pair of socks for me. I'm hoping I actually wear them, because I tend to, when I have special pairs of socks, I get a little bit worried about wearing them because I don't want to wear them out. So I hope I do with these ones. But yeah, they feel really special because it's a reminder of that lovely trip we took. And it was sort of unexpectedly lovely. I didn't really know what it would be like that week we spent on Holy Island. I knew I wanted to take a pair of socks with me, and I wanted it to be a sort of special pair of socks. And I'm going to choose colours that will make me think of beaches particularly, but sort of pebbly beaches. So I decided to use the 3 accent colours striped on the rib, and I've added a twist into this to give it some texture. And this reminded me of the sort of ripply sand, you know, what that wet sand that's left behind when the tide goes out and it's got all those ripples in it. And then just went from there, really. I thought, I'm going to put some colour into the leg, but I didn't want it to overwhelm the leg because I just like a short leg. So I've just added these narrow stripes in the leg, and then I thought I would add wider stripes on the foot, inspired by that pink pair. And it worked really well. So I called the rib the ripple rib, and then these are narrow horizon stripes and wide horizon stripes. So it's all inspired by that kind of, you know, sat on the beach, either knitting your socks or I was wearing them on the beach. But it's that whole kind of feel of particularly the beaches where we were. So yeah, the island socks coming out to you soon. I hope you all really enjoy knitting up your own interpretation of these socks. And yeah, I can't wait to see them all.
Yes, there they are, the gorgeous socks which accompanied us on the location filming for the series on Lindisfarne.
Yeah.
They're going to be launched on the 1st of September, free to Gold and Platinum patrons in 2025 as part of the Platinum collection. And it's a really sort of poignant pair of socks, isn't it? Because of that link to the island.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, as you know, you can tell from just talking about that last project, I love, you know, the feel of a project, and the island socks is another project just like that. You know, I got all the feels from it, the associations of being on that island and just the experience of it, and, you know, just being with you on our own, you know, it was lovely. Yeah.
And that's all encompassed in those gorgeous socks. So yeah, I hope you really enjoyed that little snippet of Design Diary. That's just part of some of the content that we put out every week, every month for our Bakery Bear patrons.
Yeah.
And I think it's very much time, because I can see the projects right there, that we had a look at. Kay Jones, what's off your needles?
Oh, this is really fun. So I've got a mixture of things. So the first thing that's off my needles, you never actually even saw on my needles. And it's another folded hat. It's a size large folded hat, and it's this one. I knit this one using a skein of pixie yarn, I should say. And the colourway was, now how do you say this? Persea, P-E-R-S-E-A. And it's this gorgeous mix of like deep blues with a sort of purplish hue and then some lighter blues. It's absolutely lovely. And I put this onto Bryony's head, and it, like I say, it fit her absolutely perfectly. And I'll stick it on Dan's head now, just so you get an idea. Is that on straight? Yeah. So it's not quite, turn you to the side. I suppose it is sort of long enough, but I would have just knit it a little bit longer for Dan so that it covered his ears. But in terms of circumference, you know, it fits really lovely. I'm going to pull it off, sorry. No, there's no hair to pull with it, is there? It's not like you've got long hair. I knitted this myself. I didn't get a test knitter to do the size large because I'd added this size in after I'd actually sent it to testing, because I decided that I really would feel happier if there was a larger size, because, you know, for my family, I would have needed a larger size. So I thought I should just put one in there. So I thought, right, I will test knit the size large. So that's what I did. So what I do when I test knit my own patterns is I will print off the pattern and I will literally follow it as if I'm just knitting it from a pattern that I wasn't aware of. And I am able to do that. I know that some people might say, well, you know, you've written the pattern, so would you necessarily read it because you know what to do, that kind of a thing. But I've done it many times. So yeah, this is the size large, and I'll turn this one inside out actually, because I was careful when I wove in the ends on this, and I'll show you what it looks like inside out. So I just think it's really lovely because you get the stocking stitch brim and the reverse stocking stitch for the body. And I think it's just because it shows off the yarn a little bit differently, doesn't it, on reverse stocking stitch. So I think that's really nice. And I used, for the size large, I used just under 80 grams of the skein, so I do still have some leftovers. So that was the main thing I was checking, that it was okay for yardage, you know, for one skein of yarn, that there would be plenty, and there is plenty. So that's really good. You know, even if you knit this a bit longer, there'd still be enough yarn. So that's another folded hat with this beautiful yarn. It just worked out so nicely, I think, in this. And, you know, what will I do with this hat? I'm not sure. I mean, Bryony, she doesn't really wear hats. We had this whole big discussion about it. You know, even when it's freezing, she'll just like, my hair doesn't look right. And anyway, so I'm not sure. Maybe I'll gift this to someone at Christmas, one of the men in our family. So that's the first thing that I finished. Lovely. And then I also finished this little mitered square project that I showed you last time. Isn't it fun? I just finished the border and that's all done. I gave it a light blocking and it's all ready to go off to university with Bryony. So she'll just keep this on her bedside and she'll use it as like a big coaster effectively. Yeah, and it's super lovely. That's the back. You know, you do get, with the way that I work my mitered squares, you do get a ridge on the back. But I actually really like the way that it looks. For me, it shows the workings of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I don't necessarily need the back of a blanket to be super pristine and perfect, because at the end of the day, it's the back of the blanket, isn't it? And it's the front that's more important to me. But I actually really like the look of the back. I think it's really nice. So yeah, that's all done. So I use the method for this that's in my 100 acre blanket pattern that went along with summer of stitching this year. So that's all finished and lovely. And then I did some sewing. So Bryony, for a new room, a new university room, she wanted some placemats and some coasters, because in her new room she gets like a little dining table of her own, because it's like a little studio room. So she wanted to have some placemats and some coasters for that little table, and she was very specific on the theme. You know, her new room is going to be very autumnal themed, lots of kind of vintage Halloween type things that also look quite autumnal. So we chose some fabrics and I've made her 4 placemats and 4 coasters. And the thought of doing these, I'll be honest, I thought, gosh, this is going to take me quite a long time, because she wanted like a patchwork look to them. And I've been sort of procrastinating about it because I just thought, oh my goodness, you know, it's really going to take me a while. But I had some other sewing to do as well. I made a couple of my tote bags that were the Summer of Stitching design, the 100 acre tote bag. I made a couple of those for gifts as well for some friends. So I just had a couple of days of it and just got all this sewing done. But in the end, actually, I used a technique that turned out to be really quick. I kind of made it up, but also I watched a few YouTube videos of various different people and I found this particular method. So I'll show you the placemats first. There's 2 of each of 2 different fabric sort of designs, if you like. So these are the first ones. You can see it's the same fabric range but just different placements. Bryony chose the order that she wanted them in. And what I did was I cut strips of the fabric that were different widths. So I did 2-inch, 3-inch and 4-inch strips. And then we've kind of mixed them up so you get a uneven width collection. You know what I'm trying to say? I just think it looks a bit... Maybe you don't. I just think it looks a bit more interesting than same width stripes of fabric. And then the back is just the sort of plainish fabric that came with this range. And the technique I used was a quilt as you go. So these have got a fusible fleece in between. So I, rather than doing the quilt as you go, do you know that traditional quilt as you go method that's from that book? I've got it. I can't remember the lady's name. But this one is a very quick method. So what I did was I laid down the first piece right side up and just stitched that really close to the edge. And then the other ones, I just did right sides together, seam down, fold it over. Right sides together, seam down, fold it over. And worked my way along like that. So you're quilting the back as you go as well. And then the backing fabric also makes the little binding as well. So the backing fabric's just a bit bigger than the front fabric. And then when you've sewn all the pieces down, you just fold it over twice, do a double fold and just stitch it down. You know, it's not a traditional binding at all. You can see the stitches along the edge. And I've just squared off the corners, a very simple binding. But I think it works really well. And I have some placemats like this with the fusible fleece in between, some Christmas ones that I've had for years, and I've thrown them in the washing machine several times, and they're okay. They do all right, even with that fusible fleece in between and having quite a lot of stitching on top. They always fare really well. So I've said to Bryony, you can, if you want, throw these in the washer at 30 degrees and I'm sure they'll be fine. Or she can just wait till the end of term, bring them home and I'll wash them for her. So this fabric range, she chose this. We went online and she chose it. And it's by Moda and it's called Home Sweet Haunt. So it's all these vintage sort of Halloween colours that she really liked. And then the other two are more kind of in-your-face Halloween, more fun. And I don't actually know this range, unfortunately. I've had this in my stash for ages, for quite a few years, and I can't remember the name of the fabric line. I mean, someone might recognise it out there. And this one's got purple spots on the back. I ran out of the fabric and went and got some more, but the spots are slightly smaller, but it's the same purple. So she didn't mind. So she's got 4 lovely placemats, and then I made her 4 coasters using the same method but just with a single piece of fabric. So these were really quick, would make brilliant gifts. And these ones are with some dinosaur fabric that I found, and again I can't remember the range, unfortunately. It's a recent one, so again somebody might recognise it. But it's these sort of cute dinosaurs, and the white bits are glow in the dark. This is a coordinating that came with it, and again the white sort of boulders or rocks, they glow in the dark. So I made of these ones because these 2 topics, Halloween, autumn and dinosaurs, are 2 of her favourite things. So she's got all of those lovely things there to go off to uni with. Who knows what state they'll be in a year down the line, but it's fine, isn't it? They're there to be used.
Right, it's time to get back to Holy Island. This is the halfway point. It's the home straight after this, and it gets more and more exciting as the series continues. Because yes, next time, it's castle time. But more about that later on in the show. So yes, let's get back to the story of Holy Island.
Welcome back to the story of Holy Island. The year is now 1066, and the last Anglo-Saxon king of England has just been killed. Funnily enough, his name was actually Viking, because whilst he's known today as Harold, his actual name was Harold with an R on the end. That's the Viking spelling, and it's actually the Viking version of that name, and the reason being is because his mum was actually a Viking. He, though, now was gone. The new king was King William. He'd come over from Normandy and he brought with him 2 other innovations that would now transform Lindisfarne.
The first were castles. These spectacular defence systems were created to defend the lords of Normandy against the threat of Viking raids through the 9th and 10th centuries. This is Lindisfarne Castle, and we will be discovering its story in our next episode of the series. The second was a rich monastic culture. While the first Christian monks had appeared in Egypt around 300 AD, the monastic architecture of Europe was really driven out of the architecture of the Normans. Once they mastered stonemasonry, inspired by the buildings of the Roman Empire, it gave us buildings like this all across Europe.
As the arms of Norman power started to spread across the country, castles and monasteries started popping up everywhere. What's really gratifying to know, though, is that by 1082, that community of monks started by Aidan 400 years earlier still existed.
As we found out earlier in this episode, they'd left in 875 to escape the Viking raids. After living in secret 60 miles south of here for a number of years, finally they found a home in Durham, which is not far away from here at all. There they set up an actual monastery and they laid down roots. Now though, the year was 1082 and the wheels of religion were being driven by the Normans. One of the monastic orders they promoted were the Benedictines.
It was decided that the Benedictines would now take control of that community of monks started by Aidan. They were told that they had to accept the Benedictine rule or leave. So whilst that was sort of harsh, most did accept, and they were in fact in good hands. Their treasures were taken into the safekeeping of Durham Cathedral, where they've remained to this day. And what happened at Lindisfarne? The Benedictines decided it was time for a religious house to return. Not only that, they promoted it so well, they actually changed the name of Lindisfarne to Holy Island in honour of Aidan and Cuthbert, both men now sainted who had lived and died here.
And this was just the start of Holy Island's return to prominence. The new Benedictine monks of Durham decided to build an outpost of their community here on the island, and they needed the help of the Northumbrian people to do it.
That's because building here was a real challenge. The stone actually came from a small village called Chiswick. It's about 15 miles just up the coast. And the people of Northumbria, they brought the stone free of charge. They loaded it onto carts, horse-drawn carts, and they brought it all the way down the coast. And then they brought it right the way across the causeway. And they did it free, because to have paid someone to do that, it just would have been completely cost ineffective. It shows you how committed and how much the Northumbrians were to this island and how much they wanted to see monastic life return.
Building work commenced around the year 1100, and the site they chose was of course St Aidan's now ruined monastery.
The buildings they constructed would not be a full-size monastery. Only 6 monks would ever really be based here permanently. And because of that, it wasn't actually a monastery, it was called a priory, and it was ruled over by a prior. And with that, Lindisfarne Priory was born. And I think it's high time that we went and had a little look around.
The Priory Church was dedicated to St Peter, and whilst it's small in comparison to a place like Fountains Abbey, it is equally as grand.
We're stood outside the main entrance. This is the West End, and it really is a spectacular architectural showpiece.
You can see that it would have originally been flanked by those 2 tall corner turrets. Each contains a spiral staircase, and this is a real statement for such a small house. The arrow slits at the top of the west front show us that armed soldiers once guarded the building. It's the first time I've ever seen anything like that in a priory. But as we look further down, we see familiar signs of Norman architecture. The main entrance to the church is richly carved with diamond and chevron patterns. It's extremely reminiscent of the priory's mother house, Durham.
As we make our way into the church, we see that it has a normal cruciform plan. It's got an aisled nave, 2 transepts and an apse, and the transepts and the apse each used to have an altar.
The first thing that hits you walking through this nave are these massive columns. 16 of them once rose up to the ceiling either side of the walkway. They are reminiscent of the ones in Durham Cathedral, which they were of course modelled on.
If we look here in the north wall, we can actually see some shallow, square, sort of indentations. These are what's called put-log holes. And what these were used for were the builders of the church. They would put in wood that would then come across, and it would enable them to build scaffolding so that they could then build the church. And by using these put-log holes as a reference, archaeologists have been able to work out that the church was built in a number of phases.
The east end and the crossing were completed first. Then the nave was extended. Finally, the west front was added in the final phase of building. As we make our way out of the nave, we walk under the site of the tower, which once rose up to the highest point of the church. There was once actually a second arch that held up that tower, but it fell down in the 1820s, leaving this single arch behind. 3 bells were installed in the tower, rung to call monks to prayer or to warn of impending danger.
To my left now stands the north transept, and the north transept is absolutely my favourite because it still stands virtually to its height, and we find something just spectacular in the corner, a staircase which once led up to the floors which were above this floor that we're walking on now.
This staircase would have been used primarily by the lay brothers of the community to access the upper areas of the church, probably for maintenance. It was also used, I'm sure, by the archers who manned the arrow slits which we saw in the west end.
Directly opposite the north transept is the south transept, and both of these spaces would have been separated off, and they would have had little altars where monks would have said services daily.
The modern ramp you can see ahead leads to a doorway out of the church and into the domestic quarters. To the right of the door, we find one of my favourite parts of any monastery. This is the remains of the night stairs. It was used by the monks to get from their dorm where they slept to the church in the middle of the night for their services.
We now make our way into the chancel. That's what it was called actually in a priory, not a choir as you would expect in a cathedral or a normal church. This was the chancel. And this was really the holiest of holies. This was the place where the monks came 8 times a day to sing their services. And we can see that the priory, the Benedictine priory, was unbelievably successful by just taking a look down here in the floor.
Because when the church originally opened around the year 1150, this was where it ended. The question is, why was it moved?
It was actually because of success that about 80 years after the original priory was opened, that it was actually extended. There was a number of things extended and enlarged, and it was all thanks to the pilgrims that were coming to visit. The pilgrims brought with them money, and they paid to see all sorts of sacred objects that the priory held, as did all priories and monasteries. And with that success, this moved further back, and we're going to take a look at it in just a second, because within this chancel something very special was contained.
It was a memorial to St Cuthbert, who was now and still is actually buried at Durham Cathedral, so it was known as a cenotaph. It would have been an awe-inspiring sight, most probably topped with a painted statue of St Cuthbert himself.
The cenotaph actually disappeared in 1538, but you can only imagine the reverence that this part of the church must have had, because not only was the cenotaph here, but also the high altar was here too, and it's such a small space, we can be absolutely certain that we would have been within touching distance of the cenotaph. But that's not all that's here, because this was obviously a working part of the church. And as you find in all churches, there's a cupboard for all the vessels that are used within Mass, within the services. And there's also a sink where the monks wash their hands in the process of reading the Mass service. As we leave the church behind, we make our way out into the ancillary buildings that would have been found at any monastery of the time. Now, the first room that we come into is the sacristy, and this is the place which would have kept all the vestments and large liturgical vessels that would have been needed in any services. Now, I visited a huge amount of monasteries and priories in my time enjoying history, and every one of them is the same. They all have exactly the same layout, except Lindisfarne. Because as we leave the sacristy behind, we make our way into the chapter house. And the chapter house was one of the most important rooms within any monastery or priory, because this is where everyone came together and the rule was read and people talked, and if anyone needed disciplining, this is where it took place. So it was a very important room. But this room is just too small. It feels a little bit like a storeroom rather than the very important stateroom that it was. And it's also constrained by its east wall, and that's just not normal.
The roof was also vaulted and low, but the surviving columns are finely made, so it is a bit of a contradiction. Some historians believe this was an undercroft, possibly used for storage. We know the dormitory was above, so it certainly does make sense.
But the fine quality of these pillars, to me, says that this was, in fact, just like we expected, a small chapter house. I just can't believe that Lindisfarne would have positioned it somewhere different, because the whole point of an abbey or a priory having everything in the same place is so that monks could move from priory or abbey to priory and just know automatically where everything was. And I think that they would not have stepped away from that at this place, which was, in fact, as we're discovering, so important to the early and, in fact, the more advanced Christian faith too.
All that said, the design of all the ancillary buildings is highly unorthodox. This is the cloister. Now, it should be aisled to give areas to get outside but keep out of the rain. But there's no evidence of aisles, of covered walkways at all. It's all highly unusual. The layout is much more reminiscent of a non-religious medieval building of high status.
The fact remains, though, that the Benedictines, however they'd chosen to build it, had returned a priory here to Lindisfarne, back in the place where they'd really always been destined to be. What would the future hold? 300 years of success and lots of strange additions to the priory buildings. But that's a story which we're going to cover next time. So for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time for more of my story of Holy Island. Welcome back to the story of Holy Island. The year is 1539, and Henry VIII has decreed that all harbours should be fortified in case of French and Scottish invasion. By the mid-19th century, it was an uninhabitable ruin, and that perhaps would have been the end of its story had the founder of the Country Life magazine not come here on holiday. He saw the castle in the distance and he was absolutely entranced by it. So he rented it first and then he bought it, and he underwent the most spectacular renovation. The earliest mention of the gun battery dates from the time of Elizabeth I, and then the records tell us that there were 10 cannons based up here to protect the harbour of Lindisfarne. But by Edwin Lutyens' time, this was the perfect place to take in the view, and it really is utterly spectacular.
What an episode and what a place.
That was fun.
I mean, it is just, it's weird because it's a monastery, but it's not familiar. Yes, there's things which look right, but then there's other things which are just completely not like any other place I've ever gone to. And as we covered in the episode there, these places were built in such a way so that you could travel all over the world. You could walk into a monastery and you knew where everything was. And so in this place, to find things in odd spots and also to see things like arrow slits for archers, and it's a real enigma. It makes it super, super interesting. And the interest level is going to go sky high because next time we're going to get into that castle that's been sat on the horizon in so many of the shots.
Yes.
It's got such an interesting history.
Yeah.
All came about, as you saw at the end of the episode there, through Henry VIII, decided castles needed to be built. Of course, there was one built. It had a life which you would expect, but then it had a resurgence and it had a redesign by the world famous, I mean, he is world famous, isn't it? Architect Edwin Lutyens.
Yeah.
And as well, there's a garden by Gertrude Jekyll. That's to come in episode 5. In episode 4, it's all about the castle.
Yeah, it's not what you expect. If you've never been in it,
No.
it is not what you're going to expect from a castle.
No.
No.
And that's coming on the 26th of September because next time, Kay's here with the penultimate episode of My Perfect Socks.
Yes.
Can you believe it? The
I know.
penultimate episode.
One before the last one. What?
It is. Well described.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, just so crazy. It seems like 2 minutes. Oh, life.
I know.
Why does it just get faster and faster?
Yes.
Someone answer me that question. So yes, Kay's back as we sort of race now towards the toe and the finishing off of a year of wonderful sock knitting.
And I've been planning my series for next year, everyone.
Lots of new, different, exciting things coming next year.
Wait till you see.
Going to be very cool. So right now, it's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits!
Kay mentioned earlier on that there is a Patreon exclusive show coming up on Sunday.
Yes.
This month's show features our second ever gardening segment. There's a lovely end to our Summer of Stitching event.
Yeah.
It's the official Island Socks launch.
Yeah.
And a whole lot more.
And Sock Stash.
Sock Stash, as Kay said.
We'll be
Are you along this
updating
one?
Sock Stash. I'm
Yes.
going to show all of my socks so far.
Yes.
Yeah.
The show is available on Sunday the 31st of August. It's live at 2 p.m. British Summer Time, but fear not if that doesn't work with the time where you are, because you can watch a recording of the show anytime you like after 3:10. $2 a month supports the show here, but you can actually access all our back shows of the Patreon exclusive show, and that's a whole lot of shows.
It's a lot of shows.
It's hours
now.
and hours and hours of shows. So if you enjoyed this show and you want to see more shows like it, Patreon exclusive show is just for you, and that's just at the bronze level of patronage.
Yeah.
So it is 31st of August.
Wow.
But then, I know.
Right at the very end.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
31st of August. And then...
Back to school time, everyone.
yes. And then available to watch anytime you like after 3:10. So 2 p.m. live, 3:10 anytime you like. Our content schedule for September is also coming up on Sunday as well, because it's the end of the month. We publish a schedule telling everyone what all our content's going to be for the month after. So every Tuesday and Thursday we've got something new, but also as well it lists all the shows as well, and all the gold editions of the shows too. So absolutely everything that we get out every month, we're going to be announcing what's coming up in September on Sunday, and that publishes at 7 p.m. You've got actually a Chagu bamboo needle review coming next month, which should be really good. And also as well, you've got a sock tutorial special as well. It's your second part to closing the gap thingies, which is going to be cool. And Jen's got a new review as well coming up, and a self-contained knit from me, so lots on the way. Our latest radio show is available now. But our next radio show is coming up next week, and we're very excited about it.
We are.
Because it's all about autumn.
Autumn.
We're going to be talking about autumnal food,
Yay.
why we love autumn,
Yes.
great autumnal movies to watch. Maybe there's even autumnal music. Oh, I don't know. That's something to think about.
maybe
Books,
about
autumnal books. Oh, so if you're looking forward to autumn as much as we are, don't miss our next walk, which we hope will feel decidedly autumnal.
I hope so.
Yes.
It's meant to rain this afternoon, everyone. Apparently, heavy rain at the moment. It's blue skies and sunshine, so we're really praying for some rain. It's been so dry this year. I'm
really
very
has.
stressed about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, those reservoirs.
So look, don't miss our autumn special radio show coming next Thursday for patrons and Friday for the rest of the world. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks with a brand new show featuring My Perfect Socks.
See you soon, everyone. Bye. Leo calls it tinkle. I should have done it on if Mastermind was still here.
We might have to listen to it again.
Had made the ancient Roman capital city of York. Get it, get it. How's the wind affecting that green? How high up is it going?
That is right, isn't it? Yeah, it is, because now it's... Yeah. One, two, oh no, I'm not stopping. What am I doing? Yeah, I am stopping. Yeah. 1, 2. Oh, it's all going wrong.
Had never expected anyone to attack their priories and their monasteries. No, no, no.